am Tomiko Dagan, Senior Vice President of the Universal Peace Federation USA and the US Coordinator for the IAPD Peace Forum. IAPD is a project of the Universal Peace Federation. We organize various programs that bring together leading experts from different professional fields in academics, civil society, faith-based organizations, the media, business, and the art to explore the prospect for improving relations, not only between the two Koreas, but also among the other stakeholder countries in the region. The main goal of this soft power or track two approach to peace is to contribute to the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula through dialogue, scholarly research, and civil society initiatives. UPF chapter in 160 nations worldwide will not only raise awareness of the problem, but also result in a variety of recommendations that may be proposed and eventually carried out. We hope this webinar series will be an excellent opportunity to learn more about the issues and the challenges and ultimately give us hope toward the building one Korea. Today, the program moderator, usually our chairman of the Universal Peace Federation USA and the president of UPF International, is now in Korea joining us. At this time, it's 4 a.m. over there. He's going to greet you from Korea. Dr. Jenkins, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Tomiko, Vice President Duggan, we're so grateful for this program today. I just couldn't miss it. We didn't schedule me to be here, but I just am so inspired by Dr. Suzanne Schulte and her work to really bring freedom to North Korea, to people throughout the whole Asia region. She's been very significant in connecting people with Christian churches and helping them stabilize. There's like 35,000 or more people living in South Korea who directly came across one way or the other. And our programs have been great. Dr. Hendricks, it's an honor to be with you today. And we really appreciate you. You've spent a lot of years in Korea. I'm in Korea now, so I couldn't moderate today. We didn't know what the situation would be. But I just, I'm very, very inspired by things moving in the right direction from people like Suzanne and Dr. Hendricks. We can never give up. We had two Washington brief programs that UPF sponsors. One was with the DIA director, Jim Clapper, and the other was with Ambassador to Korea, Admiral Harry Harris. And both were conveying that we can never give up. We can never give up. But there is a front page story on the Washington Times was that America's lost tremendous leverage in the last few years because there was not much dialogue or give and take between the North and the United States. But that nothing stopped with Suzanne Schulte. Nothing stopped with the Dr. Hendricks and many NGOs like UPF, because we are still in great efforts to communicate. And also we have many associates in the IAPD, the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, which Tomiko is the co-chair of, and in America. And we're really grateful for that. So just I look forward to the program today. I know it's going to be great. And thank you. I think there's always hope if we have faith, and faith must lead the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Larry Moffett, our Secretary General of the Universal Peace Federation USA, to moderate this forum.
Larry will do much better than I would ever do. He's the best. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Hello, everybody.
Yours, Larry Moffett.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Tomiko. We have two very experienced Korea hands on this show today, people that have been on the front line of fighting to liberate North Korea from the chains that it's been in for the last last many decades. I will start with Dr. Suzanne Schulte, who has been a periodic guest on this show, and we've always been very happy to have her. She is a North Korean human rights activist, a policy expert. She is either chairman or vice chairman of a number of important organizations, including chairing the North Korea Freedom Coalition. She presides over the Defense Forum Foundation. Defense Forum Foundation is a very important nonprofit that promotes strong national defense, freedom, democracy, human rights abroad. She co-chairs the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea. My good friend Greg Scarlettue, who is the executive director of that organization, is very happy to hear that you are on our program today. She chairs the Free North Korea Radio and U.S. Western Sahara Foundation. Dr. Schulte is one of the leading activists in the North Korean human rights movement. She's very much on the front line, and that means standing on the border and sending information over. She's very interesting to talk to. She's always up to something. She has spent over 2 decades promoting freedom and dignity of the North Korean people. Dr. Schulte, we are so happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moffitt, and it's always good to see Dr. Jenkins, and I appreciate him kicking us off from Korea. And Tomiko, thank you for inviting me to be with you. Tomiko asked me to focus on 3 major areas, and I'll be brief so we can, because I know we're going to have questions and other speakers, but I wanted to mention, the first thing she asked to talk about was the work of different Korean communities and what are the recent developments. So I want to talk about the most recent developments, since the last time I was with you was this past summer. We launched Operation Truth, which is an effort funded by private citizens. That would be Korean Americans, churches, freedom-loving people from around the world, to help support getting information into North Korea. And we designed, I'm going to show you a couple of quick things. We designed this this is a water balloon that's being used by the North Korean defectors. They put ramen noodles, rice, Bibles, flash drives, leaflets into these water balloons and float them across the West Sea into North Korea. And the reason why you see Kim Jong-un's face on the water balloon is that when it's floating across the West Sea, the border guards cannot fire upon it. But it's basically a technique that the North Korean defectors themselves designed and are implementing with the support of American citizens. And we also have a flyer that we designed. One of our interns did this for us. We kind of put it like a Uber Eats menu, so people can go online and order the things. And again, these are the things that the North Koreans tell us they want the most. It includes Bibles. They're very hungry for the Bible, shortwave radios, rice bottles, US $1 bills, because the US $1 bill is very popular in the North Korea market. You can feed a person for a week with a US $1 bill. We also have the shortwave radios, several kinds of radios, the cell phones, and then leaflets. And then we have a side order where people can order what kind of things they want to send in on the flash drives. It could be K-pop music, the Gospels, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And then we ask people if they want to add a tip for delivery, which would go to the defectors to buy a meal after they've accomplished this. And I want to show you, I have a rice bottle, but I want to show you an example, just a quick, very short video of an actual rice bottle launch that just was carried out last December for Christmas, because Christmas was banned in North Korea. And of course, the Christians are the most persecuted in North Korea. But we did a launch that was, again, funded 100% by Americans and Koreans, and 100% carried out by the North Korean people. So this video is of rice bottles that are on their way to North Korea by the West Sea. And in those rice bottles are enough rice to feed a family for a week, Bibles, US $1 bills, also the flash drives containing different information. I don't know if EJ's able to get that up or not to show you this, but I think sometimes it's good to see this actually happening in that particular video.
I'm not able to see the video. EJ is trying.
Okay. Well, let me keep talking till he gets it up there. So the reason why this is important and the reason why we launched, oh, here we go. Here's the video. This is a rapid delivery of rice bottles going in to into North Korea by an island in South Korea. And you can see how powerful the current is. So this is a particularly effective one. But we also have been doing balloon launches, and we've been using GPS trackers in order to make sure that they're going in. And we only do the deliveries when the wind and the currents are correct or working in our favor. So they can only be carried out at certain times. So this, for example, was carried out when the current was really strong to get it directly in to North Korea. Now, the reason why this is so important is there was a anti-leafleting law passed during the administration of Moon Jae-in. You may recall that there was an several inter-Korean summits between the former president of South Korea, Moon, and Kim Jong-un. And during those summits, Kim Jong-un asked Moon to stop sending in information, to turn off the loudspeakers at the DMZ. In my opinion, this was because we were winning the information campaign. We were literally winning the information campaign. The North Koreans were far more informed than ever before. That's why Kim Jong-un was so adamant. And unfortunately, Moon, in negotiating with North Koreans, decided to do that. And they enacted a law in South Korea, the anti-leafleting law. It's very important for people to understand when the anti-leafleting law passed in the Korean Assembly in December 2020, went into effect in 3 months later in 2021. This law banned the leafleting and the rice bottles and all the work that the North Korean defectors were doing, and subjected anyone caught doing this with fines or jail time. Now, it's important to understand that this law violated the South Korean Constitution and South Korea's international treaty obligations, because South Korea is a signatory to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. That treaty says everyone has the right to freedom of expression, and this right includes the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds across borders. So they were violating their own constitution, and they were violating their international treaty obligations. And unfortunately, that law is still in effect, even though it was ruled unconstitutional back in October of last year. The South Korean Constitutional Court said this law is unconstitutional, but it's still in effect because it has to go back through the legislature, which is controlled by the very people that enacted the law in the first place. So that's why Operation Truth is critically important. The North Korean defectors said, we will never stop getting information into our homeland as long as we have the support to be able to do it. We will risk being sent to jail. We will risk fines, but we will never stop doing this because we know we're getting ramen noodles and rice and food and the Bible and information to our loved ones back in North Korea. And they have never stopped. So I'm pleased to report to you that during this past year, we were able to deliver $200,000 worth of rice, ramen noodles, Bibles, flash drives, and money into North Korea. And so we're going to continue to carry this out. And as I mentioned, because it's still against the law in South Korea, it's incumbent upon freedom-loving citizens to support what the North Korean defectors are doing. And I have to tell you that the current president of South Korea, President Yoon Suk-yeol, he loves this. He's totally in support of this. When he gave the address to our Congress last year, he used the word freedom 36 times when he spoke to our Congress. And he started out his address to our Congress with a very significant quote from Abraham Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address. And I believe that he was basically acknowledging that America had faced a great division, but came together and ended the scourge of slavery. And I believe he was acknowledging Korea is still divided, half free and half slave. Because as I always like to point out, every single person in North Korea is a slave, except for Kim Jong-un. That includes every high-ranking official serving in the Kim regime, because they wake up in the morning with no choice in their lives. They have to be slaves to Kim Jong-un or they will be killed. So that everyone's a slave. And Operation Truth is modeled after a very successful program we have, which is Free North Korea Radio, which I know Dr. Jenkins and Tomiko are very familiar with. But Free North Korea Radio is another project 100% funded by freedom-loving people of the world, 100% carried out by North Korean defectors. All the programming is done by North Korean defectors. It broadcasts every morning and every evening into North Korea. So with that first point, I have to say that faith-based communities are critical because they are the ones that are carrying out Operation Truth, and they are the ones that are supporting these efforts. Now, Tomiko asked me also to address briefly about what's going on with North Korean defectors in China. So I wanted to point out that China has claimed for decades that the North Koreans that are escaping from North Korea are economic migrants. And that very well may have been true during the Arduous March because they were crossing the border not for freedom, but for food. They were hoping to get work in China. They were hoping to find food in China. And that's how China defined them. But now we know after decades of eyewitness testimony, these are refugees that qualify for asylum because of the persecution they face when they're sent back. And more defectors have been escaping North Korea, not because they were hungry, not for food, but for freedom, because they learned about the prosperity in South Korea and they wanted to better their lives and they wanted to pursue their dreams. So more and more of the defectors that have escaped have been making a conscious decision that they want to leave that regime. They're turning against the regime. And what's happened most recently that Tomiko wanted me to address was what is going on with the North Koreans that have been detained since COVID. And that is a population. We know there were at least 1,200 that were in detention, and 600 of them were forced back. These are children, women, and men that were forced back 2 days after Hamas attacked Israel in the middle of the night. And what that tells us is that the Chinese don't want you to know what they're doing. They wanted to hide this because they know that they're sending these people back to face certain torture, certain detention, and possible execution, especially because the population that escaped, the people escaped during COVID, they could only have gotten out if they had the means, the financial means to get out during a pandemic, which means they're either Korean Workers' Party members or they have family in South Korea, which means that they could be executed because those are crimes against the state of North Korea if they're forced back. So we're very concerned about the ones that are forced back. We're very concerned about the ones that are still detained. And that's an issue that we need to continue to raise our voices about because we know the Chinese know what they're doing is wrong, and it violates China's treaty obligations because they're a signatory to the Refugee Convention. So just to finally, to wrap up, one of the third point Tomiko asked me to address was what are some of the things that what are the steps we can do? I think this is a spiritual battle. I believe in the power of prayer. We have an international day of prayer and fasting that we have every April 28th, where we ask people to set aside that day to pray and fast for North Korea. And we usually conclude that day with a prayer service online in which the North Korean defectors who become pastors lead the prayers, and people can join from all over the world. That's the first important thing, I think, is prayer because it's a spiritual battle. Secondly, is to partner with these North Korean defectors, support things like Free North Korea Radio and Operation Truth. And then finally, giving a voice. I know Dr. Jenkins mentioned he's going to be meeting with a North Korean PhD later on in his day in Seoul. It's really important to give them a voice. And in March, we're going to be bringing over 3 women who were entrepreneurs and helped create the market system in North Korea. And through their testimony, we want to have people understand that it's the women of North Korea during the famine that created the market system in North Korea. It had nothing to do with the regime. The regime tried to stop it, but the regime had to back off because the women of North Korea were so desperate to feed their families, they became entrepreneurs. So we have 3 women that were involved in, one was a restaurateur, and 2 were involved in trading and selling things, including one was very much involved in dissemination of South Korean videos and soap operas and music, and she's going to tell her story. But the other thing I want people to realize is that a lot of young South Koreans don't want unification because they fear that when the regime collapses, it's going to be a huge economic burden on South Korea. But through the voices of these women, we also want to show that the problem in North Korea is the regime. It's not the people. And these are examples of just unleashing the ability for people to be able to prosper is what needs to happen. And that could change everything, that the miracle of the Han in South Korea can become the miracle of Taedong in North Korea if North Koreans are just given a chance. And with that, I will thank you very much. And I will try to keep to my time. I think I did pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Schulte. That was excellent. I have a lot of questions. We will listen to Tyler Hendricks first, and then I would like to bring you and Tyler on and handle some of those questions. Regarding the 3 entrepreneurs that are coming over, we'd love to have them on our webinars here. I think their stories are going to be fabulous. Anybody who has any questions for either of our speakers, just put them in the chat, and we'll get to them after our next speaker. We are very grateful to have with us Dr. Tyler Hendricks, who's lived over in Korea for a long time. I want to say the last 10 or 20 years. Who knows? It's been a while, but I believe he has moved back to the United States. That's my understanding. He earned his doctorate in religion at Vanderbilt University in 1983. He served in a lot of leadership positions in the First Assembly of the World's Religions and the Religious Youth Service as president of the Family Federation for World Peace in the United States from 1995 to 2000. He is also president emeritus of the Hyojong International Graduate School for Peace and Public Leadership, having served as its president from 2000 to 2010. So I guess that's the time you were in South Korea. Well, welcome, Dr. Hendricks. It's so good to have you here. Thank you very much. And you're in our time zone, so
yes,
lucky you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moffett and Mrs. Duggan and Dr. Schulte. Tremendous sharing. I really learned a lot. And I'm going to take off from your last point to spiritual battle. And I've been in Korea, Larry, for 4 years, and I live in an English language bubble. So I'm going to give you a perspective on the spiritual battle. And so I'm going to share my screen here. And yeah, here we go. And I'll get through this as quickly as I can. What are we here? Play there. Okay. True family values. You can hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we hear you fine.
Okay. True family values, a headwind for Korean unification. I'm going to paint a big ideological spiritual picture here. We can create a model for a unified Korea. We need a model. You begin with the end in mind. Religions can be the world's moral force. I know there's IAPD, religious complication here. If they can overcome sexual immorality and if they can unite for this cause. And here's the game plan. First, religious leaders practice true family values, which I'm going to define, and lead their people to practice them. This means receive the marriage blessing and prepare our children to do the same. Second, unite with other religions, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Jew, and beyond, bring your government to adopt true family values. And true family values can serve as the foundation for a nation's law, policy, and culture. Nations whose law, policy, and culture are based on true family values will gradually harmonize with each other. North and South Korea can unite by this method. Now, what are true family values? They are the laws on which science and religion agree. What are these laws? Science calls them the laws of nature. Religion calls them the laws of God. Well, God created nature and is revealed through its laws. So we harmonize there. So let's look at the laws of nature. Nature puts the whole purpose above the self-purpose. That's the principle of the ecosystem. So natural law tells us to put whole purpose above self-purpose, i.e., like Jesus said, live for the sake of others, put others first. And this is what all religions teach. For us, the mind thinks about others and the body thinks about itself. So that means the first law of nature is the body follows the mind. That is, mind over body. All religions teach this. Mind and body is a vertical relationship. Now, if the mind-body relationship is a vertical law of nature, what relationship is the horizontal law of nature? You need vertical and horizontal. What is the horizontal law of nature? Male, female. The horizontal law of nature is the male-female relationship. In the ecosystem, male and female mature, unite sexually, multiply, nurture, and repeat. So two conclusions we can draw from this. Nature puts mature first before unite sexually and multiply. Number two, nature has parents nurture their offspring. Nurture, has parents nurture until their offspring reach maturity, which means they can survive to multiply on their own. For human beings, mature first means sexual abstinence until marriage. Nurture offspring means sustain the two-parent household, faithful marriage. So the horizontal laws of nature are sexual abstinence until marriage and absolute fidelity in marriage. The healthy nation starts with natural law, purity and fidelity, sexual abstinence until marriage, and eternal commitment in marriage. These are the essential true family values. Science proves nations that follow these laws multiply and thrive, and nations that violate these laws suffer and disappear. I won't go through the data, but it is plentiful and plain to see. How are the two Koreas doing in this area? In a word, neither are doing very well. North Korea, domestic violence against women in the home is rife within DPRK society, and it is common to see women being beaten and sexually assaulted in public. Rape and sexual harassment against women in North Korea is common. This is from 2018, a report. I think it's from a defector from North Korea who wrote this. But there is sexual corruption at the top. The harem of Kim Jong-un and his father and his grandfather. As a result, in terms of sexual morality, even the all-powerful North Korean Workers' Party is largely hands-off. South Korea, the world's highest level of digital sex crimes, the world's lowest fertility rate, one of the highest rates of female murder in the world. South Korea already has the world's lowest fertility rate at 0.78 as of 2022. The projections paint a darker picture of demographic trends for South Korea than they did at that time, when authorities forecast that their fertility rate would bottom out at 0.7 and in 2024 start rising again, but it's not happening. That's from Time magazine recently. Not just South Korea. All governments are dealing with these problems. The path forward is to honor religion and follow the science, move in the direction of sexual purity and marital fidelity, a two-pronged strategy for governments. sexual abstinence until marriage, pure love education, marital fidelity, a true family movement. And here's where religion's second step comes into play. Bless marriages and prepare youth to receive the marriage blessing. Basic action step. This is a photo, I believe, from Thailand, courtesy of Robert Kittle. The government of the parliament in that country, the government receiving the marriage blessing, the parliamentarian couples, government officially adopts pure love education for its youth and promotes the interfaith peace marriage blessing for all citizens. Governments use their soft leverage points, marriage and divorce laws, public school curricula, media support, public health policies. Think of the COVID-19 response, how the government, what the actions the government took. Well, let's take those actions for the sake of the good purposes. Social welfare policies, tax incentives, these are all soft leverage points. Work with all religions and parties. Every religion supports sexual purity and faithful marriage. Conscientious leaders of all parties support them. Values education in schools. The principles of pure love and marital fidelity expressed according to the national culture and traditions. Work with the government's existing laws and offices. Bless the leaders and they will bless the nation. Establish public ceremonies and holidays. Wouldn't it be beautiful to see South Korean that being a stadium in South Korea or North Korea? These are young people pledging sexual purity and marital fidelity. High school, in the pure love pledge, interfaith peace marriage blessing, exchange marriage. Let me talk about that. That exchange marriage ends conflict is based on science. I learned this rather recently. I was so inspired. The islands of Great Britain were once as tribal as Afghanistan is today. According to Harvard scholars, tribalism on those islands vanished during the Middle Ages. They asked why? What made it vanish? Tribalism vanished, quote, largely because of the Christian ban on cousin marriage. The edict forced people to marry across tribal lines, thus blurring and ultimately dissolving sectarian divisions. This paved the way for a new historical trajectory. This is from the Sunday Times in London. In other words, tribalism broke down because of exchange marriage. Exchange marriage, interfaith, that's what the interfaith peace blessing festivals are about. But from 2016 through 2019, Dr. Hak Chan Moon conducted interfaith peace blessing festivals across Asia, Africa, and the world with active government support. We're getting there. The end of tribalism. Why not North and South Korea? When the children marry, the grandchildren unite the grandparents. It is natural law. These are Reverend Moon's words. It may sound unrealistic to you, but the simplest way of building one family under God is exchange marriage. Take Korea, for example. If the children of the leader of North Korea and of the leader of South Korea marry together, this enemy relationship would be eliminated. This was 2003. So we work with positives in the South. The Korea Times calls the government to address digital sex crimes, combat the deep gender inequality, shift social norms, comprehensive sexuality education, okay, in the right direction, incentivize having children. True Family Values accomplishes these goals. Work with positives in the North. As Dr. Schulte said, North Korean women have growing market power and social influence. Women are North Korea's most promising partners to the world. The government frequently reminds women that their primary duties to society are as wives and mothers. True Family Values empowers women as wives and mothers to move the society, to move the culture. Reform the party. Talk about the Workers' Party, and you will restore the nation. God's words spoken with power will reform the party. Reverend Moon's speech, 1990, about God to the leadership of North Korea in 1991, okay, provides a case study. Going to North Korea, and I won't go through that speech, but case study. He talked about God. When they went to North Korea, 1991, Reverend and Mrs. Moon gave everything and were ready to die. They went at the risk of their lives, spoke the truth of Godism, and embraced Kim Il-sung as their long-lost brother with a heart of complete love. It's like a Jewish survivor of Nazi concentration camps forgiving and embracing Hitler, okay? It's like Jesus on the cross, dying, praying, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. There followed, after this meeting with the Reverend and Mrs. Moon and Kim Il-sung, a series of cooperative developments between the anti-communist unification movement and the communist North Korean government. Sacrificial love at the cost of one's life changes things. Are the Christians of South Korea ready to do that? Reverend Moon's assistant, Dr. Bohee Pak, reported of what developed in North Korea back in the 90s. At my last dinner, he wrote, with top Communist Party leaders, they asked me to pray. I gave a very strong prayer. They said they felt good. Lately, Antonio Betancourt, rest in peace, in North Korea, is always asked to pray before meals. He does in Spanish, and they brought a Spanish interpreter. Lesson, the party can change. For a bird to fly, one wing by itself is useless. The bird needs two wings. And the two wings need a head. The head guides and harmonizes the right and left wings. Democracy and communism are two wings, striving for world peace, but they fly off in different directions. One is too individualistic. The other is too socialistic. The two wings are missing the head. They're two brothers. What is the head? Their parents. The kingdom of God is parentistic, which means stick to your parents. It is marriageistic, which means stick to your spouse and fulfill God's dream, one family. Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon calls all women to guide their husband and children in the way of creating true families. This will rescue the world from the demographic cliff that all world leaders recognize. Dr. Robert Kittle sent me the following significant slides about this. The AP in last May, the Pope joins Meloni, President Meloni, in urging Italians to have more kids, not pets. Xi Jinping, we should actively foster a new type of marriage and childbearing culture. This is last November, speaking to the National Women's Congress. Vladimir Putin urges Russian women to have 8 or more children as the norm. December of 23. Kim Jong-un cries as he tells women to have more babies last December. I watched the video. He was crying. Unless they radically change direction, the Catholic Church can't solve this. Democratic regimes can't solve it. Communist regimes cannot solve it. It is the mission of each of us to build true families centered upon God, who is our heavenly parent. Political negotiation, Dr. Hak Ja-han Moon, and economic exchange will come only on the foundation of the true love of God. By making this our focus, our talks with Chairman Kim opened a new chapter for the unification of North and South Korea. Reverend Moon, the basic principle capable of unifying North and South Korea begins with true individuals who come together to form true families. So the job is ours, you and me, to create a true family and true cities, true countries as a model for true nations. Only then, he continued, can that principle be applied to unifying the Korean Peninsula. It starts with us. When that principle is extended to the world level, it becomes the principle for realizing true freedom, peace, and happiness. The unification of the Korean Peninsula, therefore, will provide the opportunity to realize a united world and the unity of God and humankind. Where should we start? True Mother says, we need to build it here at Cheongpyeong. I want to create the kingdom of heaven on earth here in this place. I'll create the ideal here at Cheongpyeong and then expand it. We need to show others throughout the world through H.J. Chunwon. Dr. Schulte, if you don't, this is our complex in South Korea. It's about 25 miles from the DMZ. We want to show what the Garden of Eden, we have to show a model, not just talk. We have to walk the walk, create the model, a charter city on our H.J. Chunwon's 10 square miles. It would, if it were counted as a nation, there would be 4 nations smaller than this one. A charter city is a new city granted special jurisdiction to create a new governance system and enact policy reforms. Charter Cities Institute. A charter city is a type of special economic zone. It has sovereignty within its host nation. One Holy Community scholar wrote on this idea, a young man over in Europe. Once such an experimental community on sacred grounds succeeds, measured by stable exponential growth of families, it will be exported as a model for other communities to emulate. It is a long-term project focused on sustainability. The Charter Cities Institute provides a description. This is partial. Funding to purchase and develop from private investment to limit financial risk of the host country, create new administrative entities to establish city services, city laws, city functions, form a public-private partnership between the host government and the city to ensure incentives are aligned for long-term success. South Korea has 8 special economic zones. H.J. Chunwon would be number 9. The DMZ can be number 10, the peace zone. Our charter should focus on policies and principles that facilitate family formation as a foundation for a social economy. Gapyeong County, where our complex is located, is northwest of Seoul. Gapyeong County is very positive with our investment in public works. They like us, they work with us. Over half the children in the village where we're located, over half the children in the public schools of Sorak are from our blessed families. They know it makes a difference. Together with town and county officials, we can put our vision down on paper and take it to Seoul. 400 years ago, the Puritans established a charter city named Boston. It was the seed of a new nation, the United States of America. It's our turn now. First step, religious leaders practice true family values and lead their people. Second step, religions unite based on true family values. Third step, religions bring governments to adopt true family values. True family values can serve as the foundation for a nation's law, policy, and culture. Nations and religions whose law, policy, and culture are based on true family values will naturally harmonize. Sexual abstinence, absolute fidelity. These are indigenous values. They are scientifically proven. They can unite all religions. They can unite all Koreans. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tyler. That's some beautiful, comprehensive
Very
presentation. Can we put Dr. Schulte back up on the screen? I'd like to, there we go. Thank you very much. Very different presentations. I'm quite amazed. I was thinking of something when Dr. Schulte was talking. I thought about recent comments made by Kim Jong-un, where he said, we're no longer going to try to unify with the South. We're adopting an option of doing a first strike nuke if we feel threatened. And I thought of God hardening the heart of the Pharaoh in Egypt, which was a precursor to the liberation of the Hebrew people. I don't know how it will play out in this time, but I certainly recognize the signs. Dr. Schulte, what is the process of a defector once they get to China? There's thousands, maybe 10,000 or more North Korean defectors currently in Seoul, right? I forget the number, but it's in the thousands, and they somehow get into China. How do they get from China to South Korea? How does that happen? There must be some process. Do they bribe their way? Do they all have to suffer horrible indignities for that to happen? Or how does that work?
Well, there's an underground railroad, and there's some people that are involved in that underground railroad that are doing it for profit, and some are doing it because they're Christians, or they're North Koreans that have become Christians. There's a woman I know, I call her the Harriet Tubman of North Korea, because she's rescued, I believe the last time it was almost 20,000 North Korean refugees. It's a harrowing journey.
And she's in China? Is this lady in China?
Through China. There's been many different escape routes. Some have gotten through Mongolia. Many go to Thailand, because in Thailand, even though Thailand's not a signatory to the Refugee Convention, they won't send anyone back, even though they're not obligated to under international law. What they will do, though, is they say, well, you came to our country illegally, so you're going to have to be detained, and then they are able to get to South Korea. But in answer to your question, it depends on what kind of resources you have. But it's a harrowing journey, and it's extremely dangerous. And I'll just mention there's a documentary that just came out called Beyond Utopia, that traces one of the harrowing journey that these North Koreans go through. As a result, most North Koreans, when they do get to South Korea, suffer from post-traumatic stress. Fortunately, the South Korean government set up an incredible program to help them with resettlement that lasts about 3 months. They get debriefed and interviewed for a month, and then they go into Hanawan, which is a facility where they learn how to be able to succeed and prosper in South Korean society. Unfortunately, other countries don't have a program like that. So, like, for example, the North Koreans that come to the United States, they suffer a lot. And there's a book that just got published by Dr. Sheena Chestnut Greatens that documents how some of these North Koreans that come to the United States, they end up moving 6 times because they have trouble with the resettlement process. But South Korea has resettled successfully over 34,000, I think up to 35,000 now, successfully resettled that many. And I actually believe that they were those North Koreans that are voters now that have become enfranchised in South Korea. I believe they're the ones that gave Yoon the margin of victory in the last election, and because it was the closest presidential election in Korean history, and and Yoon won by a very narrow margin. But for the North Korean defectors, for them it was life or death, because they knew that Yoon was for freedom and democracy and human rights, and so they worked their hearts out for Yoon's election.
Okay, thank you. I have another question, and then I'm going to ask Tyler a few things, and I'd also like Dr. Jenkins to comment on some of these. When I'm going to ask something of Tyler, and I know that it's something that Dr. Jenkins has dealt with a lot too. But before that, Dr. Schulte, is there anything being done to push back against the anti-leafleting law? I mean, technically, somebody could send some balloons over the border, and they might get arrested, but how far would that go in the courts, because the law itself is unconstitutional?
Well, there has been a court case that was challenged with one of the people who's doing the balloon launches, and they upheld his right to be able to do that. What's happening right now is they've taken a hands-off approach. So they're not arresting any of the North Korean defectors that are doing this, but we're trying to be very strategic and respectful. And I can tell you that we have had great sympathy from those in the community, the police, whether it's the Army. They have been very sympathetic of what we're doing, and not to go into too much detail, but they have kind of a hands-off approach. Go ahead and just do it because they want to see it done. And I can just tell you that I've been doing this for decades. When South Korea had the sunshine policy under DJ Kim and Romian, I almost got arrested myself a couple of times because all these police would show up. But when Park Geun-hye got elected, and when Lee Min-bak got elected, and then Park Geun-hye, during their administration, the police would also show up when we were doing a balloon launch, but they came to make sure nobody stopped us. So that's kind of the sympathy we have right now with the Yoon government, that even though it's still a law in the books, they totally support what we're doing, and they have not interfered.
Oh, how are North Korean defectors treated in the South? I understand at one point they ran into some difficulties because the government was not sympathetic to them because they were trying to appease the North. Has that eased up?
Yeah, Dr. Moffat, you're absolutely right. Under the Moon Jae-in government, they were treated horribly. The Moon Jae-in government cut off all the support for the North Korean defector organizations and some of the humanitarian support that was being given, to the extent that a North Korean mother and child starved to death in Seoul because they didn't have the support services they needed under the Moon government. In addition, the Moon administration repatriated North Koreans. They repatriated a fisherman in a high-profile case, and they tried to say that the fisherman had committed some crime, which was not true, and all this has started to come out. And of course, Moon enacted that anti-lethal law, but he was terrible to the North Korean defectors, and that's why they work so hard for President Yoon. Now what President Yoon has done, President Yoon has started helping these North Korean defector organizations, and he recently declared that they're going to establish a North Korean Defectors Day to acknowledge and show respect and regard for the North Koreans that have resettled. So he has a very strong passion and very strong support for North Korea human rights and advocating for the North Korean defectors.
You are doing amazing work, Dr. Schulte. Amazing work. I've been following your work for quite some time, and you are absolutely relentless and courageous. I love it. I wish this program were longer. I've got to get something from Dr. Hendricks. That was a mind-blowing presentation. And I know you, this is right up the alley of you and Dr. Jenkins. So I want to get some comments from both of you. But when I go to Korea, when I go to South Korea, I see the materialism there, and it kind of, I think the young people are loster than the North Koreans. And I'm thinking, you know, I don't know where that ends. We haven't solved it in the United States, but it's what the United States is, only far greater in North Korea, far more advanced. In South Korea, far more advanced is the materialism and the young people, and they have so much plastic surgery that all the young people look the same. So here's my question. What you talked about was good, and creating the economic zones. But what is being done? I got some hope. Somebody mentioned this in the questions about Korean celebrity couples. There was the one, we watch Korean dramas in our house because we like sappy romantic stuff that's unrealistic. So we watched Crash Landing on You anyway, it's just, but the stars of that show got married and had a child and became kind of celebrated in the South. So first, Dr. Hendricks and then Dr. Jenkins, are you getting a foothold anywhere? That's a nice lecture, but who's going to sit still for it?
Okay. Yeah, we've been working for 6 or 8 months. The main focus of our movement in South Korea, as far as I can see, is the unification of North and South Korea. And even our Sunday morning meetings in Sorak have all focused on the unification of North-South Korea. We've had North defectors speaking. We've had government people speaking. It's been very, and we're really working hard to build alliances and expand the work there. I want to just mention one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Jenkins. One of our leaders elders in South Korea, Dr. Jin Sung-bae. He's the president of called the Hyojung Academy, I think it is. He was appointed by President Yoon. There's a certain kind of commission in South Korea that works on victory over communism, unification of the peninsula, and it has I think 45 leaders, and each one has a little area in South Korea. And there's one of them whose area is the entirety of North Korea. And President Yoon appointed Dr. Jin Sung-bae as the leader of that department. And he's very close with President Yoon. His office is near the Blue House. We're doing activities there with people in President Yoon's administration. So we just keep the prayers going, and there is progress. I mean, the fact that President Yoon would recognize Dr. Jin, who has spent the last year or two giving a lot of victory over communism lectures, teaching around Korea, and he got the attention to the level of the executive level in the South Korean government, and he got appointed to this position. And you know who's against him? The Christians attack him, the communists, the leftists attack him, and the Christians attack him. But anyway, he's strong, and he's working.
Yeah, sometimes the Christians get confused. I notice, anyway, thank you very much for volunteering to send your PowerPoint to Tomiko. So anybody who wants to get Dr. Hendrick's PowerPoint, just shoot an email to Tomiko Duggan, and you're good. Dr. Jenkins, you arrived in Korea just hours ago, and you hardly slept, and you're just up now. So I'm very interested in how you're functioning and what you think about all of this.
Thank you, Larry. And everybody should know that Larry Moffat went to North Korea and had a meeting with Kim Il-sung. He's got a nice picture of his handshake with Kim Il-sung in his home.
We had chemistry.
What's unique about this, I'm so grateful for this program, and Dr. Schulte, we really want to help more, and we'll talk about that after this program. We've got to get behind what you're doing more and spread the word, because it's just so important. I feel the popular change of sentiment in North Korea is ongoing, and the communication through the balloons and through everything. This is what Bill Gertz, a star reporter from the Washington Times, the main intel reporter, said, number one thing we should be doing, get more information to North Korea. And one defector we met a couple of years ago with a Washington Times fact finder, the head of the defector was the person that trained people on how to hack the whole military installation with, hundreds and hundreds of young officers or enlisted people who were doing the hacking. And what he did was he got a couple Korean dramas, because he was also the main screener for all videos coming in from the South. He got a couple video dramas that were just delightful. And it's just Korean culture, family culture, nothing political in it. He liked it so much, he kept it. And then he gave it to somebody he felt he could really trust, a friend. That friend turned him in, and he had to do hard labor for a significant amount of time. And that changed his heart, and then he defected to the South. We were very happy when we were able to meet Tae Young-ho, who is the highest level defector, deputy, highest second ranking member of the North Korea delegation to the embassy in the UK. And we've met with him, and he got elected to the National Assembly, which is a profound thing. He's now a current congressman with the National Assembly. Very good man, though. And I think that this is so important to really give people more love, more information. But also what Dr. Hendrick shared too, ideology is important. So that we're having to fight this this injustice and human rights violations from many different positions, politically, diplomatically, but through Christian churches, prayers, Christianity spreading in North Korea, Susan getting the defectors hope and they can come out, and then ideology. Ideology is critically important because unless we challenge the ideology and give an alternative, there's no way to move away from it. And this goes for China too. So I appreciate that, Dr. Hendricks. And I think that, the family values, we're fascinated by the fact that, families are in North Korea. They're all in families and they're all sharing the same problems that all families have, except much more severe problems for just existence. But this program is so important. And we really look forward to working together more and seeing the breakthrough. Many are predicting that, it's terrible what Kim Jong-un shared on the, last day of the year. But in another way, I don't think we can ever let up because we saw the Berlin Wall fall, and Father and Mother Moon, our founders, never give up. They always believe that as long as a person is, willing to engage in any way, God can touch them. And that's finally what we see. God is the hope. God is the hope. God can touch people. He touched many throughout history who were deemed impossible enemies. So that's why I think Dr. Schulte makes so much headway, because God is in the center of her work. Thank you to Vice President Duggan and our audience here. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thank you, Dr. Schulte. Dr. Hendricks. This has been an amazing program. By the way, I'm not a doctor, but I thank you for the honorific. It has a nice ring to it. This has been an amazing show. Dr. Schulte, I hope we can have those ladies, those entrepreneurs, on one of our webcasts. It's been a great honor to hear you and Dr. Hendricks and Dr. Jenkins. So glad you made it safely. Mrs.
Yeah.
Duggan, thank you very
Yeah.
much for asking me to do this. I enjoyed it so much.
Wow.
And I'm honored. And where are you?
We're going to the DMZ 2 days this week to have prayer and also dialogue and discussions.
That's
Wonderful.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
So
wonderful,
thank-
Dr. Jenkins. Yeah, don't catch a cold. So anyway,
Thank you.
so Dr. Schulte, thank you so much once again, and Dr. Hendricks. I was never expected you're a great educator. Really, I can really tell. I mean, everybody was impressed by your presentation, and thank you so much. I was just to love to watch a movie if that is available in the United States. You mentioned Beyond Utopia. That is actually partially documentary type of movie. That's what I understand. I love to watch. And so I was watching also one American journalist who traveled from China side all the way to the from south to north borderline, how they can watch North Korea, and toward the north, we can really see maybe 100 feet beyond, and the river side becomes so narrow that I can really see, wow, North Korean side can see how they are living, and North Koreans also see how China is living. A completely different world. I was just watching. It's a fascinating kind of it's a documentary. If we can, YouTube. It's a bit fascinating to see that North Koreans are watching exactly how Chinese people are living, and versus how they are living in North Korea. So anyway, it's a really educational. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Dr. Schulte, thank you so much. We'll stay in touch. I know Dr. Jenkins was impressed, and he mentioned that ready to support your program. I mean, we are so honored. We are so honored for your dedication and the incredible work you are doing for decades. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
say hi to your husband,
Yeah.
Suzanne. We have the greatest respect for him too. He's supporting your work, but he's also playing a key role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so long until
Okay,
next
thank
time.
you so much,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Moffett. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Larry, for your work.
Thank
So, Dr. Hendricks, so I will receive your PowerPoint.
I'll send it.
Love to study and love to invite you. I'm sure many education institutes want to invite you. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.